Hi, my name is Maris Hawkins, and I am here to talk about using technology to provide input in a comprehensible input manner. So I am a middle and upper school Spanish teacher at Bullis School in Potomac, Maryland. And I'm also a blended teacher, so I teach 2 days face-to-face, and then the other 2 days my students are working online. I'm also a blogger and a tweeter, and so I'll share both my blog and Twitter handle at the end. And then I am a Virginia native. I was born and raised in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and then I went to both undergrad and graduate school at the University of Virginia, and I graduated from the Curry School as well. So, and thank you so much for FLAVA for hosting me. We'll go over different parts of the story so the students are hearing the language over and over again and continue to hear the key phrases that I've been targeting from earlier in the lesson. So students, once this is done, then each student can take a picture of the board with all of the pictures up there, and then they go back and upload it to Seesaw. Then in Seesaw, we'll see in a second, you can record an explanation of what they just saw. So again, they're using the same phrases that we've read and that I reiterated during the collaborative mural time. As students read in either free voluntary reading, so we'll take time once or twice a week to just read a selection of novels or books that I have on hand, and students can take book snaps. So this idea comes from Tara Martin on Twitter. And again, they can use Snapchat or they can just use the platform of Seesaw. So they take a picture of their favorite page, or they take a picture of something that they had a reaction to. They liked it, they didn't like it, it surprised them. So they take a picture of that, and then they caption it and explain it, why they liked it, or why it was surprising to them. So then at that point, they can upload it to Seesaw. Another great point about Seesaw is that other students can read and comment on their post as well. So they're able to give feedback to students and see what other students are doing in the class as well. It's also nice if students have been absent, I can show them examples of student work. And like I said, this also pushes out to their parents, so parents can see what they're doing in class. I always tell parents at back to school night that when I was going in high school and in college, my parents always wanted to hear me speak Spanish, and I did not want to, which I feel like many of our students can relate to. They don't really want to show speak Spanish, especially in the very beginning, just because. And so by doing some small recordings on Seesaw, the parents are able to hear what they're doing in class as well. So here you can see some examples of what I've done. So the top left corner is they were actually recreating a song that we listened to in class. So they recreated the pictures. A boy faints and the water gets spilled on the hand. It's from Te Veo in Lasso, if you have used that song before. So they recreated the pictures, and then below. And on the right side, you can see some book snaps that my students uploaded. So one was about Hamilton, and the other was reading Goodnight Moon. And you know, it's cute when they use their Bitmojis, even though they're in English, they're just showing comprehension within what they've been doing. So Seesaw, again, is a journaling tool that they can use to upload their work and share it with others. So I would love if people can kind of break off and brainstorm some ideas of how to use Seesaw in a CI classroom and how you can use it in your classroom. And if I see any questions, I'll answer them as well. So as you guys are doing this is what Seesaw looks like, and I did just a test class. And I'll give a little bit more of explanation in a minute, but I'll give you can see these are all the different things that you can post to the student journal, so that can help you brainstorm as well. Oh, yes, thank you. Is it free? Yes, I use the free version exclusively. There is a paid version, and that helps you to have students use it year after year if your whole department is going to use it. But it is, I just use the free version and it's been great. And so you can see what you're seeing on the right side is the free version and everything you can upload. Oh, yes. I love the idea from Ocean Links to talk about having students showcase what they've learned each day, like a portfolio. And that's another thing we do now is a good time, or sometimes in the winter when we're all dragging a little, is to go back and look at what they did in the beginning of the year versus what they're able to do now. And that's usually very eye-opening for students. Oh, good. So using Seesaw for projects, and then you can also, yes, create folders within it, and then that way they're able to keep everything together as well. I've done a little bit with folders, but not as much as I probably should. So that's great. Yes, at the end of the year, students' work can be downloaded and they can keep a whole file, and they send out an email to let you know how to do that. I don't use Google Classroom, but I think that I'm pretty sure it does because it does integrate with Google Drive. Oh, good. And yeah, it's great. It's more of just a digital form of a portfolio, but it keeps it in a nice area. So as people are discussing, I'll just show you a bit of what it can do. So you can see here, you can post to the student journal. The photo, video, drawing, add a file is a great one, and then note. That most of my students add either add a note or a link as well. I'd say the nice thing if you use Google Drive is sometimes, every so often, a note will get deleted or it doesn't automatically save. So sometimes it's nice to just link it through Google Drive because you know that will save it. So just a quick, so I came in and I set up a class, and then once I do that, you can go over here, and then this is where you can get a student code. So you can do, if you click on this, then you just have students go online, and this is how they enter into your classroom. And so once they have this code, you can see it lasts for a couple minutes. They can all join in, or you can email them with instructions as well. So they join in, and then their screen looks very similar to this. So once they do when they want to add an active, they want to add something, they can go over here, they post the student journal, and this pops up. And I will say one great thing about Seesaw as well is I know that even students all the way down to kindergarten are using it, and it also works really well with iPads. So even if you are in an elementary school, I know that this pairs really well with iPads as well. Can I correct my presentation? So, and then as we talked about a little bit earlier, another way to use Seesaw is to have students reflect on their growth throughout the year. So a lot of times I'll have them take screenshots and then they go back and they type in a caption of how they feel like they've improved. Does it work with Chromebook cameras? Most of my students have Macs, so I mostly use Macs, but I would assume that it would work with Chromebook as well because it does seem to integrate nicely with other Google tools. Or what I'll have my students out like their phone or what have you, and then email it and upload it as well, because that's always a shortcut if it doesn't work with the program that you're using. Oh, good. I'm glad to know that it's working with Chromebooks. Thank you. So the next tool that I wanted to talk about was Actively Learn. And Actively Learn I use to assign a reading task. And I feel like this is one that's one of my favorites, and I feel like it really helps differentiate for students. And it's not, oh, good. Ocean Lakes, yay, people use Actively Learn. I really like it, and I encourage more people to use it and look at that if they haven't. Before I forget, Actively Learn is free to upload 3 articles a month. So you can upload a PDF, you can upload a website, you can upload a Google Doc, but you can only do 3. Personally, I've run into the problem once or twice where I was going to go over my limit. But mostly if you kind of spread it out throughout the year, you add in some over the summer, they stay with you. So, you know, if you do 3 this month and then 3 next month, you'll have 6 total. So again, even though you can pay, I found that I can still do a lot within the free version. So looking at how Actively Learn provides more input, so you can embed a story from a web page or Google Drive or a PDF. PDFs don't work as well, but still do a good job. Learn. And then as you're going, you can embed the questions right into the story. So students are able to answer questions as they go. And I found that this really helps students who sometimes get overwhelmed with a lot of text. And it's a wonderful support for them as they're going through. And you can also embed links to other websites if you'd like to go and send students to another website. So you can do a variety of questions, and we will explore that in a bit, but you can do polls, you can do multiple choice questions, you can do open-ended questions. And then another way that Actively Learn helps students is that you're in settings and you can allow students to see other students' responses anonymously. So as I found that as my students are going through, they'll see other answers, they'll realize that their answer is not correct, and then they'll request a revision so they can do it again. So one thing that I really love about a lot of tech tools is the instantaneous feedback it provides. So this is another way that this technology tool provides instantaneous feedback. And so they request to redo their answer, and then I can go on my portal and let them redo their answer as well. And then also the analytics and correction are also really great, and they're really easy to grade and review with students. So you can see this is what, so essentially I have the question that I ask at the very top, and then I have the answers that the students have given. The pink is just their name. That's why I blocked that out. But you can see below that I can give a score of 0, incomplete, basic, proficient, and advanced. I don't always use all the nuances. I'll typically, if it's half of it's right, I'll do incomplete. If none of it's right, it's a 0. And then I'll typically use either proficient or advanced if they answer it correctly. But then you can see right below, you can click to leave feedback for the students. So sometimes, and many times they're making similar errors. And so I will go and put the feedback in there. So someone asked about Edpuzzle. This is different. This is just with reading. You can't use this with video. So I'm going to talk about Edpuzzle in a little bit, but I use Actively Learn with reading. I've heard some people say that Actively Learn is the kind of reading tools for the reading tool for Edpuzzle. So that's the difference. But yeah, so if I'm giving feedback to students, a lot of times I can copy and paste, and that also makes it very easy and quick for me to grade. Oh, and yes, Ocean Lakes added that you can embed video to help with the reading. That's awesome. Yes, and I will show an example in a minute. So if you want to talk and ask me any questions, and then I'll go ahead and pull up Actively Learn so you guys can see that as well.
There you go. Sorry.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I will read the questions out loud. So how does it incorporate with Schoolology? Unfortunately, my school uses Haiku, so I'm not too familiar with Schoolology, but many of these tools I know tend to work fairly well, but I typically grade here and then just import the grade into my gradebook. So over here you can see one thing that I do on my blog is I work on writing comprehensible news articles every other week. Actually, I'm going to be writing one for this coming week. And so I have taken that and then I have embedded it here. So the one thing that you'll see here is that it's not, this is a PDF. So this is a little bit, like I said, it's not as friendly. It won't embed it right away, but it does embed every question at the bottom. If you, so this was the first page, and then this was the first article that they read. And then I ask a couple of comprehension questions there. And then they answer right, and that's about the first one, and then they can see this. So this was, you're kind of seeing the other end of what my students saw. On the other screen, it showed their answers, and so then I'm not going to click, but I clicked so they could see. It was about the Fashion Week in Madrid, so then they clicked and looked at some of the crazy dresses that they wore, and then could describe it in here. And then here, this is the third page. And so then there's questions here as well. So you can add the directions, and then, so once you're in, this is, excuse me, this is what it looks like once it's all done. But I can add questions to the end of the page, and then you can see short answer, multiple choice, or add a standard as well. So I saw that in Fort Royal they were talking about differentiation, which definitely it helps support. And Ocean Lakes as well, you can make versions of the text and have different questions to meet where your students are, which is also awesome. So then if you go back, here is my workspace. And then I have 2 classes that I have that are working on this. So then I can go and I can assign, and I just check one, and then it goes to their class. So again, once you create a class in Actively Learn, it's very similar where the students get a code and they sign up to go there. And then once they're in the class, they don't see all of my articles, they just see the ones that are assigned to them. So now that you've seen a little bit more, I'll let people chat for a couple minutes, ask me any questions before we look at the next tool. Can you create groups to assign the text? Yes, the same way that you would do a class. I'm not sure, maybe Ocean Lakes can talk to that. I've typically just assigned it to a class. So I'm not sure if you can create groups within the class or if you would just do separate classes. But either way, you could do that. Is there a limit to the number of classes that you have on the free version? I am not sure. I have, I've done, I think, up to 3 classes in the past, and I haven't had that. I wouldn't recommend Actively Learn to younger kids just because it's more for literate students than pre-literate students. Can you scroll up because some of the questions came in all at once. How big can the PDFs be? I have not found a problem with uploading any PDFs, and I think when I was originally looking, they had some really long PDFs. Oh, and thank you, Ocean Lakes. You can have 5 classes for the free version. So yeah, your PDFs can be just as long as you want. Actively Learn will tell me that I'm asking too many questions, but I haven't had a problem with that. The kids don't see that. They just give me a little note. Oh, and then collaborative groups is in the paid version, but if you'd want to separate your groups within, depending on the number of classes you have, if you have fewer than 5 classes. For example, I teach 2 Spanish 5 classes, but I just have the 1 group. So, when are the students doing this work? Many of my students do this at home. I do this for reading guides. And then, as I said, I teach a blended class. So my Spanish 2 class is doing that during the day as well. I think so, yeah. Okay. So now we will go on to the next tool. So this is, again, so once the students have answered it, then this is what it looks like on the other end. And then another thing that you can do is students can also add notes to the document. And so they can highlight tricky sections or parts that they didn't completely understand. And again, with focusing on giving them more comprehensible input, obviously the reading is a big component in comprehensible input, but also from a formative assessment side, you're also seeing sections that they didn't understand or parts that they're having trouble with to then review in class the next day, or even right there, depending on if you do this in class or have them do it for homework. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is Edpuzzle. and especially how I use Edpuzzle for movie talks. So I know that a lot of teachers love Edpuzzle and that they use it a lot for interpretive listening, and I use it for interpretive listening as well. However, when I want to do more of a comprehensible input focus, then I can do it with a movie talk. So for those of you that haven't heard of a movie talk before, ton of databases, and after this I can go online and kind of link up more of that I have, because there's an Edpuzzle database that has, I think it's mostly Spanish, but it's every Edpuzzle that people have made, they've added it to this database, which is awesome. But then there's also a movie talk database, and I can link to that as well. So movie talk are typically wordless videos that students are watching, and then you'll watch a video for a while and then you will pause it, and then when you pause it you take time to look at whatever you want that's happening in the movie. So the nice thing about the database is it explains some words that whoever added it to the database thought was helpful to target during that time. But to be honest, in a movie talk, you can talk about whatever you want. So I'm actually going to, I'll fast forward and then go back. So this is what it looks like. And so for example, it's a building and I stopped it at the building. So then I can have students describe the building. I can have them describe the weather that's going on. If there's a person in it, we describe the person, especially in Spanish 1 and 2. Are they tall? Are they short? What color is their hair? What color is their eyes? And again, just going back to getting all of those sort of basic beginning of the year things that you talk about, just recycling them again, in addition to the target words that you're asking. So typically in a movie talk, it can be done in a face-to-face class, and I've done a lot of those. But I'm also going to explain now how I use a movie talk with Edpuzzle. So as they're watching, instead of me pausing the video, I'll ask a question where I want it to stop for them. So they're watching along and it'll pause and then it'll ask them questions. You can also add any notes that you want. So if you want to highlight anything that you've seen, you can add either a question or a note. So I would use the notes to describe what is happening, like you would if you're traditionally giving a movie talk. Then students can answer multiple choice or open-ended questions. So multiple choice corrects it immediately, or open-ended questions, you go and you as a teacher have to correct them. So benefits for teachers and students. Feedback is instantaneous with multiple choice questions, which when I'm doing these Edpuzzle videos, I always try to come up with a good balance of multiple choice and open-ended. Open-ended for the benefit of them being able to talk more and give more feedback, but then multiple choice so that the students get an idea of how they're doing. Are they answering the question correctly or not? And then, as I say, Edpuzzle is completely free. I want to say that it integrates really nicely with Google Classroom. I'm a big fan of Google Teacher Tribe podcast. As I said, I'm in Maryland, and so I was driving down here and I was catching up on my Google Teacher Tribe podcast. So if you don't listen to that, you should. And I think I remember them saying that it does integrate really nicely with the Google Classroom, and it integrates nicely. We have Haiku, and it integrates nicely with them as well. And then, as I said, you can also share Edpuzzles with other teachers. Oh, and Skyline, they're in Fort Royal. They're saying it does integrate beautifully with Classroom, and they are also a big fan of Google Teacher Tribe podcast as well. So, yay! I'm glad there's other fans out there. So, as I said, with the database, You can share Edpuzzles with other teachers. You can also go and search for Edpuzzles as well, which it's wonderful to do that because sometimes we are running short on time, and sometimes I'll just Google what I'm looking for, and a lot of other Edpuzzles that have already been made pop up, and then you click on copy, and then you can assign it right to your students. So again, using the database, this also helps you save time as well. And like I said, it's free, so you don't have to worry about that. So then you can see this is what it looks like when students are going through on their screen. And like I said, I'll show you in a minute kind of how you can add different things. But the other benefit is too, you can crop a video. So if you don't want to show the whole video, you can crop it, and then you can add notes. So here, this person lives. They can they type right below, and then they hit submit. I think I allowed skipping on this. You can limit that if you don't want students to be able to skip questions. But then this feature is also really nice. This is a rewatch. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I really love Edpuzzle, and I use it a lot of times with any sort of video that I'm using, because I was giving an assessment in class, and students only needed to hear one portion of the video, but since I was giving it to the class, we all had to keep watching the video over and over and over, however set many times I decided, until the student had the one question that they needed. So this is wonderful, because if one student needs to watch the beginning part 3 times, they can watch the beginning part 3 times until they either see the answer or if it's speaking, if they hear it. And then the person next to them only needs to watch the middle part twice. So that, again, they can really go at their own pace, which is amazing, especially while students are working on activities like this. And as I was saying, it integrates beautifully with Google Classroom. It integrates really well with YouTube as well. And if you like Edpuzzle and you use Chrome a lot, they also have an Edpuzzle add-on to Chrome. And so you can go ahead and you can get the add-on with, and then while you're in YouTube, there's just a green button that appears that says Edit with Edpuzzle, and so you can click on that. The one kind of pickup I will say is sometimes, especially with international videos, sometimes they disappear. So sometimes that's a little frustrating, or occasionally it won't transfer over to Edpuzzle since it's a different one. So I also like to use music a lot in class, and I found that many of the music songs don't actually transfer over to Edpuzzle. So that I definitely run into that problem as well. And so then right here you can see this was when I was doing the Octopody talk or movie talk, and then I had the students had to describe what the orange octopus was doing, and so then they went ahead and answered it. And then over here on the right, I can do, for quick, easy feedback, if they're right or wrong, I can do a check, which gives them 100%, or I can do an X, which gives them 0%, or I can click right there, and if they had to give me 2 words, or they got part of it but not completely, I can give them 50%, and then it all computes out to a grade book. So again, the nice thing about this is, and again, the pink is where my students' names would appear. But I'm just going through and I'm looking at their words and I'm checking. And again, occasionally they'll give me something out of left field that no other students had written. But for the most part, if they're making mistakes, they can be consistent. So right below, I will do add comment, add the comment, and then continue on. The one thing that I will say about when you're grading this is it's better to add the comment first and then go back and give the grade, because once you click either the check or the X, it'll move it down. So I'd say add the comment first, then grade it, and then go on to the next one. And then I'll talk about a project in a minute, which is also awesome, but I'll give you guys, I've done a lot of talking, so I'll give you guys some time to talk and shoot me any questions that you have as well. So can
Sure, sir.
Can students record themselves? I am not aware that they can in Edpuzzle. This is more to do to ask questions. However, in a couple minutes, I'll show you how to do a project, and they can annotate the video themselves. So that's a good feature. Oh, Bombay TV allows you to write out dialogue from the video. Thank you. I found too sometimes with how YouTube will allow you to add captions. Sometimes that's a little wonky. Sometimes it transfers over to Edpuzzle and other times it doesn't, but I haven't noticed consistently. Oh, good. Yeah, and it does. It's great for flipping classroom instruction as well. Other teachers I know, I think it was Christy Placido, mentioned that she will actually record her voice during it, and then also Overstream allows you to add subtitles to the video. So Christy will add her voice. Because typically with movie talks there aren't any words. So she'll actually add her voice you can do an audio note. So she'll add her voice to the audio note and then ask her students a question. So that also is another option. As they said, it's great for flipping classroom instruction, and also it's great for sub days as well. If you're out, it's always nice, and I can always see, where my students are, who started it, who hasn't. There was one day where my son was homesick, and he was taking a nap, and it was during one of my classes. My friend was covering for me, and I logged in, and I said, these people are logged in, and these people are not. Can you please tell these people to log in? And then they were really kind of creeped out that I knew exactly what they were doing, but they got to work. So it's really great for accountability to see what they're doing. So I'll show you just what it looks like when you go. So when you log in, you can go to create, and then you can do, so here's when, if you'd like to upload a video, you can, or you can go to a new video, and then you can see some of the other things that it does So Vimeo, National Geographic, Khan Academy, and YouTube. So I will just, I'll pick this one, just so we can see. And so when you go into there, you can see that you can crop here. So that's the automatic setting. The one thing I'll say is you cannot crop in the middle, so you can only crop from one end to the other. So if there's something inappropriate that you want to take out of a video, unfortunately, it has to be at the beginning or the end. So you can drag this in, and that'll crop it. So that's wherever you want it. So then you're listening to this. And then as you see, you can go over here and add an audio track if you would like as it's going. Here you can add notes. So an audio track, you would be able to talk the whole time and discuss what's going on. And then with this, you would be able to just add a note. And then this is where you add a question. So if you wanted to add a question here, you would click that and you can see the different types. So this is an open-ended question. This is a multiple choice question, and you see it switches the order of the questions, but you always type the correct one and then any incorrect ones that you want to do, and then it can switch the order if you'd like, or it does. One time my students got frustrated because it had done like true and false consistently, and then at the end it switched it. So I don't know, but that wasn't me, that was a puzzle. And then down here is where you can type a comment. And so again, they're watching and they stop and then it appears. The other thing, if you'd like to add, you have to add a question, but if you want to add more, you can add up there. And then you can go to finish, and I can add to my classes, and then it's done and it appears on my dashboard. The other thing I would say that I sort of learned, I've used Edpuzzle for assessments before, and that's why I created different classes, because sometimes my classes don't all meet on the same day, so I did make individual classes for this, so I was able to assign it at the right time and they wouldn't go in and access it. Most of the time it was inadvertent because I had given them a practice Edpuzzle to do for homework, and they got it and they thought the real one was the practice one. But anyway, to avoid that, I just went in and I did, I just assigned classes. The other thing that I feel like is a really underutilized tool is the student project. And so again, when we're reflecting on how we use it for comprehensible input, this would be more of the formative assessment. So when you've done a lot, so you can give Spanish, explain what you see, and then you do instructions, and then save instructions type, and then save the project, and that's all you have to do. I will typically find videos, variety of videos that they can choose from, and then when they go into the project, it looks just like we saw on our end. So they can add a note, they can add a question, they can add, they could do an audio track, they can crop it. So anything that we can do as teachers, they can use to edit their own video. So I feel like that's really great, especially at the end of the unit, if you want them to go back and look at other, go back and review some of the videos that you've talked about. You can do ones that you have seen or new ones, and then again, that's the formative assessment for you to see what they're understanding. So that's the project. So I'll let you guys talk for a couple more minutes and see if you have any questions, and then we'll do the next one. And so then again, with the project and adding notes in the target language. So it doesn't seem like there are any questions. Thank you guys for participating because I'm never sure if I should go on or say, so thank you for typing in. So the next tool that I'm going to talk about is Pear Deck. And I'd say when I started with comprehensible input and telling stories, it was definitely difficult for me to do. It's a lot harder, I think, than some people think. And I feel like when I started putting my stories into Pear Deck was when it really helped me become able to tell a story much more effectively in class and to have students participate as well. So I'm glad that someone else at Ocean Lakes also really loves Pear Deck as well. So essentially what I would do is if you use a slideshow for anything, you can turn it into a Pear Deck. I should say that at my school we do have the premium version, and so that means we're able to do a couple of different things. Students are able to draw on the slides. I think they're able to move dots as well. And then I can also assign it to go at student paced mode. So typically without student paced mode, they all go through the slides with me. But I would say, especially if you're getting started, that the free version does a lot. It's great to explore. So typically what I would do when I was telling a story, I would take a couple sentences and I would type them on the first slide. And then I would ask students your typical circling questions. So, is it a boy, yes or no? No, it's a girl. And then go through, like, who is it? What is her name? And so I would do the typical circling questions, and then students would give me feedback. Then as I was asking harder questions, or if I was asking prediction questions, then I would embed that as a separate slide. And so within the slide, within Pear Deck, you can insert a question slide, and then all of your students' answers appear anonymously. So it just appears on a screen and you can see exactly as they're typing and what they're saying. Then as they're doing that, you can talk about the answers that they're giving as well. So similar to other tools, you can do open-ended questions, and you can also do multiple choice questions as well. And then it appears as a poll. Typically when I'm doing the interactive, when I'm doing the poll, I'll lock it after a while. My students like to switch their answers to watch the numbers appear, just switch around. And again, it gives you a really quick way to review the answers and give more feedback to students. And if you do have the paid version, once you're done, you can set it to student paced mode and you can send it out to students who weren't there, and they can see what you did. And then it also sends all of their answers to the students who participated as well. So this was one thing that students had to vote on. We were talking about foods that smell bad, and so then they just voted, and then that's what it looks like on their end. And then and this actually, this was what I saw on my screen. So if I'm projecting it, then it'll just show the students' answers with names. If I'm projecting it, it does not show their name. If I'm going back and looking at it, I do see their name. So that's the big pink square. The faces are how they felt that day. And I think this is part of the premium thing, but I can also star which ones I like. And then just that one will appear as well if I'd like to do that. So I can see their names as they're going through, and I can also go back and see everything that they wrote to reflect on what they've done. And so I'll give you guys a couple minutes to start brainstorming, and then I'll pull up Pear Deck. The other thing I'll say is Pear Deck recently became, originally it was an individual platform, and then they added an add-on to Slides, and now you can kind of only use it as an add-on to Google Slides. So it doesn't have the old view that it used to. It's just in Google Slides. So I'll pull that up in a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, how do students answer? They are on their own devices. They can use their phones or their laptops or tablets, and then the slides project on their devices, and then it's also projected in class. So they could just all work individually if you wanted to, or if you wanted to project in class, your screen looks a little different than theirs is. Yes, thank you. So do my students spend a large part of class time on devices working on these sorts of activities? As I said before, I have 50-50, so half of the time my students are working on technology, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that they're just working on technology. A lot of times they're working together in groups. I would say I use about one of these tools, but not always one of these tools a class period. I definitely do a lot of Pear Deck because that helps them engage. But I'll say the other thing is I am one of the biggest proponents of, if they don't need tech to do something, not to use tech. Because sometimes if I'm up there, and Kara Jacobs has done a lot of story listening where she explains, for example, a song on a video that the students are going to watch. And so I'll be at the front of the board and I will be drawing everything that's happening. And so as I'm drawing everything that's happening and labeling it and talking about it in the target language, I don't allow any tech devices at all. So I am very cognizant of when devices and when I don't. But if we don't need it, then I tell them close it and put it away. Yes, so thank you. And Front Royal, technology is definitely a tool. It helps to guide us, but the objective and lesson should definitely drive our instruction. The other thing is, and then I'll get into a little bit more with Pear Deck. The other thing is I read a lot of blogs, in case you couldn't tell. That's why I keep thinking about all these things. But I love Sarah Elizabeth of Musicuentos, and she recently, or not recently, a while ago, put out a blog post, Is Your Lesson Out of Whack? And she talked about the time that the students got the most input was at the beginning of class. So I would say almost all of my classes start off without tech, and it's just me talking, because that's when they're going to learn the most and take in the most. So sometimes it's reading, mostly it's me talking, but that's when they're gonna receive the most comprehensible input. Yes, my school is one-to-one laptop. So I know that that looks different in schools that are not one-to-one laptop. I would say something like Pear Deck is probably something that students could pair on a computer, and if not everyone, if you don't have enough laptops for everyone, then you could switch back and forth. The other thing I would say is, as my class is blended, that they work more on the computer than they do when they're with me. And that's another kind of funny thing. When we're face to face, again, we rarely use a computer because it's mostly us talking to one another. And they talk on when they're on their blended days as well. But so if you have a computer lab as well, or you can check out the laptop part, you could kind of do a couple of these activities together, and then as I do on my blended days. So over here, to do what, like I said, Pear Deck looks a little different now, and so you can create a presentation. And my tech coordinator said that it's pretty slow right now, and Pear Deck knows that, and they're working on making it a little faster. Does Pear Deck or any of these apps that you mentioned have prepared lessons to share with the teachers? Edpuzzle does. That definitely has a database. Actively Learn has some, but I haven't found great ones for Spanish, and unfortunately, I haven't found a way to share that out as easily. And Pear Deck, now that it integrates nicely with Google Slides, I would think would be definitely easier to share out. And I'm going to show in a second some ideas that Pear Deck give as you're going through your lesson, and I've used this to, I've taken some of their ideas as well. So once we're here, you have to go to the add-ons, and then I have the Pear Deck add-on. And so this is sort of what I was talking about. They give ideas for beginning of the lesson, during lesson, and end of the lesson. And another way that I use Pear Deck, in addition to telling stories and going through stories in that way, I'll also use it as we're reading a novel. I use 2 novels a year in my class, and so I do a variety of things. Sometimes I do reading guides. Sometimes we'll read as a whole class and discuss it as a whole class. Sometimes I'll use just regular whiteboards and draw on the regular whiteboards. And then some days during reading, we'll use Pear Deck. So I'll come up with the questions ahead of time. And then as we're going through, I will lock the questions when I'm reading, so they go back to their book. And then again, we can discuss it. And then when it's time for a question that I feel like I want them to have more time to think about, or there's a question that I want them to be able to see multiple answers. And, you know, I always feel like sometimes it's the quiet students that get left out of whole class discussions from time to time. So this, again, gives them a voice to let them give some input. So over here, I just go and then I add a slide. And then down here, so as I said before, some of these are with the premium version, but I know that the text, the choice, and the number, you can do that. So you can talk, so this is where you would put your text, and this is where you would put your story. So I would add a couple of sentences, and then down below, I would put another one. And then I would go over here and if I wanted to make it an open-ended question, I would click there, and then it would say students write your responses. And then that's what we would use. So if you look, it has some ideas for the beginning of the lesson, and then during lesson, and then the end of lesson. So they have some pre-made slides that you can also look at if you're interested in that. or you can come up with your own as you go. The one that I liked, and I saw it on a Facebook group, was when we were doing it with the novels, the first couple slides, I just asked them quick questions, like name 2 things that happened in the past novels. So it gives some nice pre-reading questions as we go through the story. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes, see if anyone has any questions, and then I'll go into Pear Deck vocabulary, which is on the free version and a really great activity as well. Oh, and someone shared an article on how world language teachers use Pear Deck, which is great. I think that a lot of world language teachers have used Pear Deck, and I know that I love it. I think the one thing, and I haven't read that article in a while, I think is kind of making it more comprehensible input. So how can you get it so you're continuing to give your students even more input throughout the lesson as well. Is this something students can access outside of class? Yes, if you have the paid version, you can. So I'll go over here to present. And so you can kind of see this is, again, it takes a little longer and they're working on that this summer. But they would go to joinpd.com, they would put in there, I can see how many students have joined, and then I just navigate right down here. And then since we have the paid version, I can turn on student paste, and then they're in student paste version, and then they'd use the same code, but they can just go through at their own pace, which again, like I said, is great for students who are absent. Okay, and then the other thing that that Pear Deck has added that is really great is Pear Deck vocabulary, and that is one of my students' favorite activities to do in class. And the difference between Pear Deck for Google Slides, if you're doing a presentation, and the vocabulary is that the vocabulary is almost zero prep because it integrates really nicely with Quizlet. So you can start a vocabulary list, and then it looks like this. But if you go to Quizlet, I don't even think you have to be a member of Quizlet. And then you can search. So my students are reading about Ella Keko, the novel, and so I can go over here and do export and copy text, and then go back over here and just paste right there, and then you can see it just populates with all of your words, and then you go and you play Flashcard Factory. So it looks very similar, and oh good, Quizlet Live, yes, that's another great tool if you have Quizlet, to use Quizlet Live. So students join, and then once they join, it puts them in pairs. One of the things I don't love about it is it makes sure there's even people on each team. So for example, if you have 10 students, instead of making 3 teams and 2 teams, it'll put 5 kids on each team. So sometimes there's a student working by themselves. But most of the time they kind of get over it. So if they're in pairs, one student is writing an example of the word, and then another student is drawing a picture of the word. And then once they're both done, they ship it as well. Oh yeah, Gim Kit. My Latin friend discovered it. And if we have time, I'll do that as well because my students love that. And so with this Pear Deck vocab, one student's writing a sentence, one person is drawing a picture, and then they ship the word, and then the next time it switches. So if you're using the word in a sentence, then it will have them draw, and if you were drawing, then it'll have it write a sentence and then ship it. If the students by themselves, they just write a sentence with the same word. Then at the end, they all get to see the sentences together. They can vote whether they like it or not. But this is another really fun way to use Pear Deck. So confidentiality issues for Google Drive. This uses the Google tools, and everyone who logs in has to be a Google user. So that's probably why that it's asking that. And as I said, it's as an add-on. I haven't found any problems with confidentiality with Pear Deck, and my school has been using Pear Deck for about 3 years now. So some other things that people are sharing are Quizlet Live is great, and GimKit is also great as well. So if we have time at the end, we'll go back and look at that. So, okay. And so, as I said, Pear Deck Vocabulary is a really fun game, and if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend that you try it. It's a longer activity. I'd say have at least about 20 minutes for students to do the activity, and also so you can look at them at the end. I don't know how many Latin teachers are out there, but I know that our Latin teacher uses Pear Deck Vocabulary at least once a week. So the next, the other one that I mentioned is GimKit, and that also uses Quizlet vocabulary words, and again, you just import the vocabulary words and then it splits them out, and it does an interactive game. It is created by a high school student. I guess I can go a little off script and we can look at it. I think I've got it now. Okay. Okay, so this is GimKit, and GimKit 2.0 is here. And so, and I did find out, I left my students with an assignment and I gave them the wrong unit. I gave them my Spanish 5 words for my poor Spanish 2 students. So, but anyway, so a quick question back to Pear Deck. Do I use Pear Deck with Quizlet? I use Pear Deck Vocabulary with Quizlet, and then the Pear Deck presentation I use when I am telling stories or going over novels. So I don't think it's going to let me do a new kit because it's going to tell me that I need to do that. But essentially, you can go in and copy any Google or copy any Quizlet list into it, and then oh, here's the play. So we're doing Blancanieves, which is a book by Carrie, in So again, just so you can kind of see the options here, you can do classic, which our students are all competing individually. And this is very similar to Kahoot. Actually, the student who developed it took everything he didn't like about Kahoot and made this new game. Or you can do team mode, and you can put the players per team. And so then you can have a game goal. You can just play it for a certain number of minutes. You can have a target that they all have to reach. You can have a race, the first person to get that amount, or all in, which you have them all working as the whole class. So students who are working together, they answer questions from your Quizlet list. And as they're answering questions, they get more and more money. Once they get money, they can use that to buy a variety of things. So they can buy insurance, or they can buy a streak bonus if they really want to, or they can buy, so they go ahead and they buy, and so all of a sudden you start seeing them just exponentially increase. Oh, you can also buy a multiplier as well for every question, although the multiplier, if they answer a question incorrectly, they lose their money. So that's another really, so it's a fun feature. I will say my seniors' last day is May 14th, so it's really soon. And my seniors were playing Gimkit for 30 minutes straight, just having a ball. And each student that's doing it is getting questions at their own pace. And it's not timed like Kahoot and quizzes are, if you use quizzes or Kahoot. Again, students just answer questions at their own pace, and they're all getting individual questions. So another fun tool, not as CI, it does definitely tie in with the vocabulary, but if you haven't tried it, and I'm at my 3 kids, probably another day or two. I'm going to go to the pro version because it does, as we said before, it's a high school student out in Washington who made it. And I know people have contacted him. So this is his 2nd version. So sometimes like it's a little wacky because they were not expecting it to go up as much as it has and to take off. And so, because my friend found it and I started sharing it, and the next thing you know, all these world language teachers were using it, which is awesome. But yeah, so sometimes it's a little wonky. And someone was saying they talked to the creator and he said, "Oh, I'm going out to dinner with my family, but I'll get back to you." So it's definitely an awesome venture to support. Okay. Oh, and students really like the clapping feature as well. Oops. So, so the next thing that I'll talk about for CI is using Flipgrid for retelling stories and connecting with other classes. Flipgrid is another program which I would say is you can definitely go with the free version and get a lot out of that. If you want students to be able to respond to one another, it's a little clunky if you don't have the paid version. Oh, and people at Ocean Lakes and Front Royal really love Flipgrid as well. So hopefully I can give you some more ideas as to how to kind of make this more for CI and assessing where your students are. So again, some thoughts. I have had, especially when we're reading novels, students will answer questions about what they have read. I'll just record a couple questions and then they'll record their responses. If you like kind of Flipgrid more than Seesaw, or you have the premium version of Flipgrid, you could do the same idea with the collaborative mural. So you could do, as I was talking about beginning with Seesaw, you can have them draw the picture and then go and take a picture of it and talk about it in Flipgrid as well. And Heidi gave a free code if you would like to get a free upgrade for 45 days. The other thing is, so this year I did upgrade. So last year I just used the free version of Flipgrid, and this year I upgraded to the paid version. And so each month, and I'm going to come up with a new one in May, and you can find that on my blog, I create just a general topic for any student that wants to answer the question. And so that way students can go on and record their answers, and then I have my students record their answers, and I encourage my students to respond to your students. And that's one thing that I'm really hoping to push, and I'm hoping to get next year, is not just recording the answer, but also going back and having interactions with the other students that are recording it as well. But another awesome thing that you could do, so you could connect to classes all over, and I just have a generic one for anyone that wants to join. But you could also connect to classes that are reading about the same novel. So ask the questions that you would ask about the novel, and then and your students can hear other classes doing it. And this can be done at home. It can be done in the classroom. And one of the best things, while you need an account for Flipgrid, your students do not need an account. They can record themselves on any device and then just hit send, and they don't even have to type in their email if they don't want to. And they can just type in their first and last name, and it will go there. So I definitely recommend using this. And another thing that I did around the topic of movie talks that I talked about earlier, so we were working on some verbs like to turn off, to turn on, and so we watched this video of, it's a girl who keeps turning off the light and a scary figure appears. There's no words, and she's home alone. And so it's pretty creepy. My students were totally engaged. There's a lot of screaming at the end. There's normally a surprise ending in movie talk, so there's a lot of screaming at the end. So that was what we did in class. And then I was able to, another great thing about Flipgrid is you can upload the video, the YouTube video, so that my students could go back, and if they wanted to watch that again, they could, and then they could just retell the story as well. So it's nice to have the video there that they can watch, and then you can see their, I cut off their faces, but so they would be right there. So you can also embed pictures if you've talked about a picture a lot and described a picture using comprehensible input, and you want them to go back and discuss as much as they can. That would be something else. So I'll let you guys know. I know there's at least a couple people out there that really like Flipgrid, so hopefully they can chime in with some of the tools and some of the ways that they like to use Flipgrid in their foreign language classes as well. Oh, so Heidi used it to connect with a partner school in France, and so then they get to talk with their French peers, which is also an amazing way to do that. That reminds me, Laura Sexton also put out a call for her Spanish teacher friends to record some videos within Flipgrid for her students to listen to. So again, her students were hearing from Spanish teachers, and so, foreign language teachers know how to make things comprehensible and slow down their speech and know generally words that students know and don't know. And then her students used that, that to listen to in class. So a bit, again, more CI from people that are not their teacher, which is great. And Heidi next week is going to do Google Maps, Screen, Castify, and Flipgrid. Wow. And Adobe Spark and Flipgrid is also great for creating and sharing stories. Yeah, I love Adobe Spark. I use it mostly for the images on my blog. I do have a blog, or maybe you're asking Heidi, because she has wonderful ideas as well. I have a blog that I will share at the end. I'm not sure about Heidi. I know Heidi's on Twitter, and I talk to her on Twitter a lot, and she has wonderful ideas as well. Okay, so really quickly, I'll show you how to set up something in Flipgrid, and then we will do Goose Chase at the end, which I'm actually going to do with my students tomorrow. Ooh, wrong one. Okay. Okay, so the big difference between paying for Flipgrid and having Flipgrid for free is if you don't pay for Flipgrid, then you only get one grid, but then you can come up with all different questions within it, and then you can just share that with your students. So because I have the paid version, I have 5 different grids. And then you can see these are my my ones for everyone that wants to participate in it. And so I'll just do, and this is new, but they have a lot of different options for building a grid. And so then from here, so let's say you just want one grid, you can do all the topics you want. So definitely if you want to start, you don't have to come up with, you don't have to do more, and then you can just send it. So then you do a new topic and you put all these details in here, and then below you can see things you can do, record a video, upload a video, add a video if you want to do YouTube or Vimeo, an image, or an emoji if you want them to talk about their emoji. And then some of these things are with, I know that feedback I can give with the paid version. I'm not sure about response features. But then you would just create the topic. Oops. Let me plug back in. And then over here, so just what it would look like for this is, and then you would see where all of the students have gone. So you go out to share topic, and then that has, you can just do the code, you can do the link, and that will take them just to the topic that they need to do. You can embed it, you can give them a QR code, so there's a lot of options. And then Heidi also said that if you check out the Discovery library, there's tons of topics that are created for you. And that's, so if you do have a paid version and you want to try to get more people to join it, you can also put yours there. That's what I did with our general ones, to show more people about it as well. Okay, so Goose Chase is another one of my favorite tools. This is one that I use in each of my classes twice. So kind of going back to the theme of like, how much do I use this? This is amazing. My students love it, but it's one of those things too that you would get kind of over it if you keep doing it over and over. So again, to focus it a lot to more on comprehensible input, I use Goose Chase around novels. So as I said, we're reading El Queco in my Spanish 1 class, and so we're about halfway done, and it's beautiful outside, so I know that I'm going to do a goose chase, which is a scavenger hunt. So how does it provide more input? So students are reading the clues in Spanish, and then I will also ask questions, and so they have to go back and reread parts of the novel again, so they continue to see the same words and get the same answers. And it's a really fun break, and a lot of my students like it. So I make it on my end, and then it is an app that my students download, and then they see all of the challenges that they have, and then they go out and complete them. And so these are types of clues that I use around the novels. Also, if you are doing stories, you could do this as well. The title of the Spanish 1 text that I use is El Queco, and that is it's by Katie Baker. And so if you look up that, it's through Fluency Matters as well. So types of clues that I use, answering fill in the blank clues, again, so they have to go back and read the text around it. Also, any key words that I've been circling and highlighting, sometimes I'll have them act out so they can take a picture, or they can draw a picture of the word as well. Recreating a picture or drawing a picture, make a video reading parts of the book. The same Latin teacher had a really fun idea that I incorporated this last time. She has a non-language teacher have to read a line from the book, and that's always usually pretty entertaining. And then extension activities like finding places on maps or other extension. Or I'll send them to the library, and they have to look in in a book that I know we have to find a certain picture. And then the nice thing is, so if you sign up for the regular Goose Chase, you have 3 teams for free. If you sign up for the education version, which I didn't do the first time, so make sure you sign up for the education version, you have 5 teams for free. And so I'll divide my class into 5 groups, and this is a great thing if you only have 5 phones or 5 iPads. You can do this because they can only have 1 device per team. I wouldn't do this with laptops just because they're kind of running all over the place with this. So I did Piratas, y el mapa secreto. Piratas del Caribe y el mapa secreto. Also, that was the earlier text that I read with my Spanish 1. And so this was a challenge that they had to do. So they had to draw Raquel. She has to pretend to be a pirate, so she dresses up like a pirate and pretends that her name is Santiago. So one of my students drew that, another snapped a picture, and then they send it, and it just pops up right on my computer. So even though my students are all around our school, I can easily see what they're doing and where they are. And that's a great feature that it has as well. And then you could also later, you can download all of them, and you can show them, and you can movie talk some of their videos, or you could talk about their pictures as well. So I'll show you a little bit of how that works, and then we can take some questions, and you can brainstorm a little more.
Great. Other.
And so another thing that I should mention is it only lets you run a game once. And so, for example, you'll see with the book, this was the book that I used with my Spanish 5. I'll run it once for one team, for one class, and then it's really easy to make a copy. I just keep it named copy. You could name it with the blocks. And so, and you can make as many copies as you'd like. And so that's how you run it with the next class. But you cannot run one game twice without making a copy. So over here, you can upload an image. I'll go ahead and make this. I typically don't do a location and then character Paco and then oops, and then just save and continue. And then over here is where you can insert the missions. So you can go over here and this is a photo or a video mission that I want students to complete. So I type the name in there, I tell them what to do there, all in the target language that they're reading and acquiring. And then you can do, these are the set points, or you can do custom. And then if you want to attach an image or a link, that's also a possibility. Also, I found the first time that I ran this with my students, sometimes they would give me a picture when I wanted a video. And so I'll go over here and do advanced settings. And so you can change it to photos only or videos only, and that helps them figure out what they want. And then if you don't want to do the photo, then the other one is a text mission. So you do the name, description, and then accepted answers. The one thing that I would caution you with accepted answers is it will only accept exactly what you want. So if a student adds an S or a student doesn't spell the word perfectly, then it'll kick it back. It won't accept it. So I only have them writing one word, because if not, they tend to get really frustrated with it. Even so, they sometimes still get frustrated with some of them. That's another just kind of caution about that. And then again, you can go over here and do the point value. I would say when I create this, I have 50-minute blocks. It normally takes my students about 5 minutes to download the app and get together with their game or their team, come up with a team name. It was funny, I told one of my students that we were doing it again. He said, I just deleted the app the other day. So it takes them about 5 minutes to get settled, and then we'll start. So I'll typically come up with between 25 to 30 missions, combination of written and then also videos and pictures. So that typically takes my students about 45 minutes to complete. So just some other things for you to see. The game mode, teams, unless you have 5 students in your class and you want them to do individually. And then over here is where I go to start stop. I just type in the duration that I want and then click on start game. And then once it's over, this activity feed shows me everything that's coming in right as it comes in. And then the leaderboard down here will show how many things that they've done. So I can send a message to teams if I'd like. I can also manually adjust the score if they don't do things correctly, or sometimes if they are really funny, I'll give them extra points. You can remove a team if you have to. And then submissions. At the end, this is where submissions, and then you'll see how many teams have completed them, and then you can also download them here. The other thing that I would add is the first time I did this, I underestimated the amount of time that it was going to take my students to do. So if that happens to you and you're in the submissions hub and you see that all of your students are completing things really quickly, you can just go back up to missions and you can add another mission in while they're playing. So this is a really fun one, especially to do in the spring when the weather is gorgeous. So I'll let everyone talk. And then if people have questions, ideas. So yes, the students just download the app once. They don't need to download it for each mission. And it's just one download per team, and the download is free for them. Oh, sorry, the question was, did you say the students need to download the app once or for each new mission? Is it a shareable app? Can I upcycle someone else's goose chase? Unfortunately, I have not figured out a shortcut around this, and I can show you some of the missions that I've done. And I know that there are a lot of teachers out there that discuss some ideas that they have as well, but I haven't found a way to share, my goose chase with someone else, unfortunately. So I'll go back and I'll share a couple of the missions that I've done. And so, for example, for my Spanish 1 students, so I just, again, have them completing the sentence, and I try to come up with as many, so even though like la plata, you wouldn't really say that, sometimes I try to come up with things that I think they might write, and so it gets it correct. So again, I did a lot of the completing the sentence, and sometimes if they're having trouble, I give them the page. And then there's a lot of fighting scenes, so they had to make a video of Henry and Antonio attacking each other. Again, you can see like draw a fleet, that was one of their words that we are working with a lot. Draw his house in Jamaica that he has. Find a photo of Veracruz on a map. I always do a freeze frame one. So act out your favorite part of the story or of the novel and have everyone freeze and then kind of scan around with the camera, have someone yelling, prepare the cannons. Again, more vocabulary words that I want them to do. That's the one that we saw, like draw Rachel in pirate's clothes. And then find a teacher to read your favorite line. Find in the library, find a picture of a book about Cuba. Make a video of everyone in the group saying their favorite line. So those are some that are worth a little more because they are they have to do more, and you can see some of them are photo only or video only, and they're only. The video is pretty short, so I wouldn't do anything too elaborate. but having someone, read a line or read a couple lines, that is doable in the amount of time that they have. So let's see if you guys have any brainstorms and ideas of how you think that you can use this in your class, or ways that you have used this in your class to talk with other people about that. Okay. So the last one that I have is a tool that I will share with you, that I think is another way that a lot of teachers use a Google tool that a lot of people use, but how to make it a bit more comprehensible, input friendly. So I'm sure a lot of teachers use Google Forms, and I can pull that up. And so typically what I'll do at some point during if they've read, if we've done a couple stories in Spanish, or if we're reading a novel, then I'll have students create a blank quiz of questions to send out to one another. So the biggest thing is they have to click on quiz instead of form, and then if they don't, they can go up here, and they can always change it over to quizzes. But the nice thing about quiz is they show them their the missed questions and the correct questions, and they'll give them points. And so I found that overall students really like to do that. So when I have my students make questions after readings, I'll have them do I'll have them fill out just either multiple choice questions or true false questions, because it'll grade them a bit easier. And then once the student types in the question and then all the options, then they can click on answer key, and they can go back and there's only one now. They can select the option and give answer feedback as well. So this is one way that I use, and then I typically will have them go back and then add all the questions. They can make them required. Oh, the other thing they can do in the answer key is they can change the amount of points that they give per question, and so sometimes they like to give like crazy amounts of points, and they enjoy it. So so then after that, then they can do as many questions as they've required, and then send it out to their to all the class, and then the class can come back, and then it's fun for them to look at responses as well. So this is another way that I have them use Google Forms to give more comprehensible input to the rest of the class, and to have the students go back and use to go back and look at the stories or the reading, to use that to answer the questions as well. And then since we have a couple more minutes, I'll do one more quick thing that's a little similar that it seems like there's a lot of people who know about all these tools, which is awesome. One that people maybe not have heard of, and then I'll share my information at the end. So this other app is, or tool is called Triventi, and it's similar to Kahoot and quizzes, but the best thing is actually that they can that you can have students add the questions. And so it's a similar to Google Forms, so you can create a new quiz and then you'll type the title here and continue. And then once you do that, you can invite students and you just send them all that code. It also, you can share it through Google Classroom. So if you use that, then students can fill all this out. They can give a clue. They can give a fact at the end. Most of the time, the fact that they put in is not related to it at all. And as you can see them coming in, you can edit them as well. They only see their questions over here, but you can see what they're doing. And so then at the end, you go back and you can play it. So that, again, is another way that I have sort of between Google Forms and Triventi. We do Google Forms a little earlier in the year because I found that many of my students don't know how to share or don't know how to create a Google form. And as someone who's, like I said, a big Google fan, I feel like that's a life skill. So I have them learn how to create a Google form and a Google quiz. And then I also, towards the end of the year when they've done that some, they're kind of over that some, I throw Triventi at them to spice them up. It too, it can be a little clunky from time to time. It's not always perfect. I enjoy seeing their own questions up there and not just questions that I've generated or someone else has generated. So I will, there's about 10 minutes left, so I'll take like about 5 minutes, see if people have questions, and then I can share sort of how to contact me and where I'll share more of these tools at the end. Okay, so I will go and so if you would like to reach out to me, my blog is marishawkins.wordpress.com, and I'm also at Maris Hawkins on Twitter, so it's easy to get to both. I also blog occasionally at Path to Proficiency. And then the other blog that I am maintaining with Lynn as well, who is a teacher in Chesapeake, is called edcampciba.wordpress.com. And on that website in particular, I share a lot of my CI ideas And then on my website, I share this is my blog. So just a couple things. I have a reference page just because I've been blogging for about 5 years now. So to see some of my past ideas, it's a little daunting. So I have how to teach for proficiency for all of these and how I transition to using IPAs, which is how I assess. And then the news articles that I mentioned are here, and how I use whole class novels with CI is there. A list of 100 authentic resources that I use in Spanish. And then I'll update this to include this presentation as well. But I have my other presentations that I've done. So I've done tech tools for more of the proficiency-based classroom, how to make a day-to-day switch to teaching for proficiency in whole class novels. And then someone asked for the other one. So this is EdCamp CIVA, and then .wordpress.com, and then the blog is right here. So again, today I focused a lot on tech tools, like I said before. It's just part of my of what I do, and so this is more of some tech tools and some everyday tools that I use with novels, and then other just like post-reading activities. Lynn wrote that. So this one is at the top. So this is edcampciva.wordpress.com. And so this is the address for that. They're both through WordPress. Oh, and I don't know if the other one, I'm not sure, that I mentioned was, as I mentioned in the beginning, I blog a lot. Yeah, so then the other one that I blog at as well is path2proficiency.com, path, and then www.path2proficiency.com. Thank you to UVA and PI for joining. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. And there's a couple more minutes, so if you have any questions, feel free to stay and ask, or if you have anything else to share as well. Oh, thank you. Thanks for everyone for chiming in. Oh, yay, Dr. Free is there. That's exciting. She was my foreign language professor at the University of Virginia, so that's exciting. Oh, good. I really appreciate everyone for staying that late on a Thursday night. Oh, my dad was at Ocean Lakes. Thanks, Dad. Oh, my mother-in-law and my dad were both at Ocean Lakes, so thank you.